Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and accomplished professional and a coach from Pittsburgh, USA, Monique DeMonaco. Monique, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Monique is a life leadership and a career coach, and she's the founder of EQ Wise. So, Monique, my first question for you, tell me about your journey and what was the inspiration to found EQ Wise?
Well, I've had a 20 plus year career as an emotional intelligence expert who also focuses on innovation.
Mhm.
And so I had developed and trademarked over 13 tools based in brain science, emotional intelligence, and the psychology of happiness. So we've had this thriving coaching business for years. And then last year, my youngest two are twins. And last year, the first twin graduated from college and Fordham University in New York, very good school. And he and 11 of his friends were standing in the kitchen. And out of these kids, only two had jobs in their field. One had had an offer rescinded. And so between the job market and AI, right, and the pandemic, and so I really had this flash, if
Mm.
we can't help these kids, what are we even doing in business? Because in my field, talking to HR specialists, that they're saying that Gen Z isn't ready for the workforce, emotional intelligence, business etiquette, critical thinking. So it had already been focusing on that with my failure to launch program, which is for young adults. Um, but we like to say at EQ Wise, we are to soft skills what Microsoft and Google are to hard skills.
Mm.
So these courses are meant to be listed on your resume to help set you apart for what HR managers are looking for.
Mm.
So that was really kind of the inspiration. How can we help them get the
Perfect.
skills and bump up their resume?
Amazing. And what was the defining moment that convinced you emotional intelligence deserved much greater attention?
Oh, great question. Well, I like to say I came from a low emotional intelligence family and community.
Mhm.
And at the age of 30, I started a personal journey that went on for 10 years.
Mm.
So I trained with people all over the world internationally, tons of programs and books. And at about 40, my early 40s, I recognized one day that I wouldn't recognize the old me if I passed
Mm.
her on the street
Mm.
and what emotional intelligence had done for me. And so I knew what worked. And so I decided to make it my life's work.
Mm. And what are some of the biggest misconceptions you have noticed people have about emotional intelligence?
That it's just soft skills, right? They're nice to have, but the focus is on IQ. Um, and so, for example, what we know is that IQ stays relatively stable throughout life,
Mm.
but EQ, with the right tools and techniques that we provide, can certainly increase exponentially. And that EQ is a better indicator of success and happiness in life than IQ.
Mm.
And people don't recognize that, right?
Mm.
They think, oh, it would be nice, or they think it's just being a pushover or toxic positivity, which it is not.
Mm. And yet you say that EQ can be a stronger predictor of success than IQ. Help me understand this and give me an example if you can.
Absolutely, it's a stronger indicator. Many of us know someone with a high IQ who just doesn't manage well in life.
Mm.
And many of us know someone who's a moderate, typical IQ that really kills it in their career in every area of their life.
Mm.
Emotional intelligence, some of the biggest markers are resilience. So, someone with a low resilience marker, when they fail, they typically see themselves as a failure.
Mm.
This creates risk aversion and undermines your sense of self. When you have a high marker for resilience, you see failure for what it is. It's an isolated incident where you happen to fail,
Mm.
but you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, move forward, learning from that failure, and your sense of self stays intact and you do not become risk adverse.
Mm.
Being able to manage and emotionally regulate, um, being able to delay gratification. So what is your long-term goal, and can you consistently make decisions that are in alignment with that, even when it's uncomfortable or you'd rather do something else?
Amazing. Can emotional intelligence be taught, or is it largely innate?
Definitely it can be taught. That's what our business is based on. Right. And when people understand that, it's really empowering. So, for example, it's not unusual for me with coaching clients after the first session say that they are already experiencing change. One of the reasons for that is if I had to say what emotional intelligence is in a nutshell, it's awareness. So you can't do something about something you're unaware of. So as people increase their awareness, right, they start to recognize why they're procrastinating, or why they have anger issues, or why they're failing at leadership.
Very interesting. What separates emotionally intelligent leaders from technically competent leaders? And give me an example.
Well, a technically competent leader, right, particularly today, technology is always changing. Everything is changing. So what you're competent in now is going to change, and that's great. You roll with it. You continue to learn and expand. But emotional intelligence, right, whether you're taking it through executive coaching, right, or you're teaching a high schooler, those skills stay with you for life.
What are some of the common emotional blind spots you have seen in senior leaders?
The ability to emotionally regulate. And I'll give you an example. We recently were working with a leader who got very emotional. He fired 2 people who were in his top 50 earners. The same day, he had given a big rah-rah speech about, hey, it's all about the revenue. But he got upset. He didn't know what to do, so he let those 2 people go. So that creates, obviously, problems with your bottom number, but it doesn't inspire people to want to follow you, and it doesn't make people feel safe. So they're going to be looking for other jobs. The number one reason that people are typically, at least here in the States, looking to leave their job is their boss, their leader.
Correct. How does emotional intelligence influence decision making during times of crises or uncertainty?
Well, first of all, decisions that are made out of fear often aren't the right long-term decisions. You have to be strategic, look at things long-term. You have to be able to remain comfortable, even being uncomfortable. I like to say you have to get comfortable with discomfort. And to be able to clearly articulate to your teams, recognizing that there's an issue, being willing to have difficult conversations around that, and being strategic and making a plan, not getting fear-based, not panicking, not blaming, taking accountability.
Moving on, Monique, you also speak about mental health crisis in the Gen Z. Tell me a little bit more about what drove this interest and what are some of the key factors driving this mental health crisis?
Well, I mean, the first 2 are easy, but still very, very important and impactful. Number 1, the pandemic, right? When people are young and developmental age, a lot of these kids were in, middle school, high school, college, the isolation. They really need the experiences and being out in the world.
Correct.
So that was our first one. The second one is that, and I have seen this, I have 4 boys. My oldest is 42. My youngest are 24. I saw over 2 generations how parenting changed. We had, it was a famous case here in the States. Adam Walsh disappeared in 1981. He was kidnapped. It ended very badly. He was killed. And then there was a few other national stories about kidnapping, and parents began to become very afraid. It's too dangerous out in the world. So the day of coming home when the streetlights were on, or kids, roaming free, it just wasn't dubbed safe. So that was around the time that Nintendo, and you started seeing gaming. And so you would hear a lot of parents say, well, at least they're in the house. I know they're safe. But what happened as we got the internet right and as things progressed is you didn't protect your child from the world. You invited the world into your child and exposed your child. So that helicopter parenting started. You started seeing on the talk shows and articles nationally and internationally, children's fragile sense of self.
Correct.
So we're going to give everyone a trophy. We have to not allow our kids to fail. And self-confidence is this internal job. No one can do it for you. And it comes from failing and learning from that. It comes from delaying gratification. If your parents are always there fixing your problems, right, and making sure you're not bored. I know around that time, like in the 80s, you started even seeing the rise of minivans for families, and the back seats had movie screens, right? Because, now you see people handing their kids iPads.
Yeah.
Well, technologically, you're shortening their attention span from a neurological perspective, and they don't have an opportunity to be bored. They don't figure it out, right? Someone's always swooping in to fix the problem or give them the answer. And then cell phones have contributed to that. For example, with my 2 boys in college, there are parent pages. And every day there are mothers posting questions about things as simple as, where can my daughter get good vegan food? Where's the nearest coffee shop? Well, these are things that the mother shouldn't even know she's struggling with, right? These are things you should be looking for yourself.
Yeah. And I'd love to get your perspective on social media and how has social media influenced emotional resilience among young adults?
Oh, it's been so destructive. First of all, again, with technology, from a neurological perspective, it has wired brains to have, shorter attention spans, needing more dopamine hit. So you just keep going back. And, the social media companies know what they're doing. This is intentional. And you see so many pictures, like Olivia and I were just talking yesterday. Everywhere you go, there's people taking selfies and videos, and they're only posting their best stuff. So you tend to see on these social medias people who are either have the perfect life, they're beautiful, everything's perfect, or they're just totally dumping. So you don't see that moderate ground. So people have hundreds of friends, but if they were having a birthday party, they probably wouldn't be able to get 15 physical people to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know many countries in the world are now banning social media for children under 16. It's happening in several countries.
All for it. Well, and the other thing is, I was reading somewhere in the States, I think it was Minnesota, who the parents were coming forward and saying, I don't want my kids. The school district said you had the choice to opt your kid out of technology. But when parents try to do that, they tell you the whole curriculum is on the laptop.
Yeah.
So they tell you have a right, but there's no way to do it.
Absolutely. And therefore, a follow-up question, and you just have told me about some mothers asking for vegan food. What role do parents play in helping children developing emotional intelligence?
Well, I think they need to back off. They need to let their kids fail. They need to let their kids figure it out. I don't believe being in constant contact, right? When your kid calls you with, I don't know where the best vegan food is, well, saying something like, I know that you'll find it, right? I feel confident in your ability. Standards are a vote of confidence. So I can tell you you're the best thing ever. But if I'm doing things for you and enabling you, what my behaviors are saying is that you need me. Right. So setting standards, having boundaries, not helping is very, very different than enabling. Enabling is doing something for someone that they can and should be doing for themselves.
Right. Absolutely.
It's painful to watch your kids fail, but it's good parenting to allow your kids to fail within reason in a way that's age appropriate.
Very true. Where do well-intentioned parents sometimes just get this wrong?
Well, I think there's been this huge swing in the last 2 generations. So again, these professionals, I think, have the best interest at heart, but there's a disconnect here. So think about these parents who are right, high functioning, who are doing well in life, how were they raised? And asking yourself, well, how was I raised that I'm able, that I was independent at 25? And why is my son or daughter still at home at 25? And there are multiple factors, right? The economy is certainly something. But looking at, like, what did my parents do for me and what am I doing for my child?
Okay.
Am I living vicariously through my children? And asking yourself these questions. But the number one thing that parents can do and leaders can do is helping to build self-awareness. You can't do something about something you're unaware of. So if your child or one of your direct reports is suffering with procrastination, for example, understanding that procrastination is a fear of failure. So if you procrastinate and you fail, right, there's this idea I could have done it differently. So if you just do it and you fail and you give it your all, it can undermine your confidence. So, oftentimes I'll get a call like, oh, this person needs help with their organizational skills or they're procrastinators. Well, it's the fear of failure. Right? Someone who can't emotionally regulate. A lot of people who have anger issues, it's actually a confidence issue being manifested.
How can HR leaders in organizations create emotionally intelligent workplace culture?
Through training. We provide technology training, but the biggest asset companies have are their people. And their emotional intelligence is a huge indicator of how teams are going to work together, retention, all the things that organizations want to see. Emotional intelligence is a facet of that.
What practical steps can organizations take to improve communication and collaboration across teams?
Again, I think it really comes down to emotional intelligence. One of the big indicators for emotional intelligence, the ability to communicate effectively. So I like to say, and I had a client who was a cancer researcher for pancreatic cancer. There has been really no big leaps in treatment for pancreatic cancer for years. But when he got to the human trials, he was having a difficult time filling the spots because he was coming across as so arrogant and not being able to articulate. So doctors weren't referring their patients, and there were patients that found him too difficult to work with and said, hey, if I only have 1 year left to live, I don't want to deal with this person, right? So you can have the cure for cancer, but you have to be able to articulate it and create buy-in. So just because you know something, if you can't articulate that, it doesn't matter. You have to learn to speak, to be heard, and to listen, to understand, not just to talk. Talking in itself is not a conversation.
Well said. Monique, I have time for 2 more questions. If every parent, educator, leader, and young professional could learn one lesson from you, what would you want it to be?
Again, I come back to awareness. You can't do something about something that you're not aware of. And everything stems from awareness. I like to say there are no problem behaviors, but there are certainly behaviors that are a problem. And it always comes down to awareness.
Right.
Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? Why are you doing what you're doing?
And my last question for you, as you look ahead a few years, what in your view are some of the skills that will be the most valuable in the workplace with so much technology surrounding us all the time?
Great question. The ability to connect with others. Right? That human experience. And I think it's becoming more and more important as we go live our lives more and more online. So the ability to be empathetic, to stand in someone else's shoes, to be able to show up with body language, eye contact, right? Coming across as authentic. People want authenticity.
And on that note, Monique, I just want to say what a fascinating conversation this has been with you. Thank you for talking to me about emotional intelligence. I thought we got some great inputs from you, and my viewers and listeners would just love your thoughts. Thank you also for speaking to me about mental health, Gen Z, and how we can possibly raise far more responsible children. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Well, we have a special offer for your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to coachmonique.com, we have coaching programs that are one-on-one or virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And we're offering, instead of 8 sessions, 9 sessions. So your guests will get an extra session. And with the EQ Wize, and that's Wize with a Z.com, the online internationally accredited courses meant to go in your resume, we're giving 15% off. And the code is, what did we say, Erica? TBCY.
Okay. Thank you, Monique. And I'm sure a lot of my viewers and listeners will take you up on your amazing offer for them. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.